Praise be to Jesus Christ, and welcome to Catholic Forum. I'm Alan Dunst, your guest host for today, and we appreciate you being with us. And we hope that our conversation here in West Michigan finds you wherever you may be and draws you a little bit closer to Jesus Christ through his one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. A familiar theme on Catholic Forum is the use of small communities who nurture the church as a larger body. And we're going to explore a particular community today. We've explored communities that are based on religious practices or certain devotions or a certain commonality of, well, if you have children in school and such. Today's is going to be a little bit unique as it's based on a profession, and we're going to be visiting with some representatives from the Catholic Lawyers of West Michigan. Is that the proper
That's correct.
Title? Are they?
Yeah.
Make sure we got that right.
Yeah.
And we've got some excellent representatives today. We have Sean Maltby.
Hi, Alan. Thanks.
And Sarah, and I'm sorry, Sarah, your last name again?
Vanderwerf.
Vanderwerf.
Yes.
Sarah Vanderwerf and Connor Dugan.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for having us, Alan.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
So, some people might wonder, okay, how did Catholic and lawyer come together? And tell us a little bit about the whys and the hows of the origins of the Catholic Lawyers of West Michigan.
Sure. You want me to take that one?
Yeah,
That's a softball.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think you've been.
Yeah, and
you have a little more institutional history
I probably
than the
have
rest
tenure.
of us.
And my tenure doesn't go back as far as the tenure of the organization, but from what I know, I've been a part of the organization since 2007.
Okay.
So about 10 years, and but it certainly goes back much further than that.
1989, I think.
Seriously?
In West Michigan.
Yeah, and even the official organization itself, 1989, but I know there were Catholic lawyers that were informally sort of associating with one another even prior to that.
Starting in the late 70s, from what I understand.
Yeah, and many of those lawyers that were involved back at that time, have still been involved up to this day. Some of them are judges in town and things like that. So, like you said in the intro, Alan, I think, well, it's true. I mean, our faith is we're meant to be in community with one another.
Sure.
We're meant to be in communion. We're meant to communicate with one another, in a very sacramental way. But that is supposed to not just take place inside, the four walls of an actual church, but everywhere we go and in everything we do, and that is what we attempt to do with the Catholic Lawyers Organization, and I think to varying degrees of success over the years. One of the hallmarks, if you will, of what the organization has done almost continuously since its official origins is a Red Mass, celebrating the Red Mass every year, typically in October. It's a tradition that goes back even, I think, to England before the founding of this country, where members of the bar, who obviously their faith was a big part of what directed them in their life, would come together in a special way to recognize, how it is the faith influences what they do in their profession. Mm-hmm. And so we do that every year at the cathedral. And every year since I've been a member, those Red Masses have been celebrated by the bishop, which is a great gift to our organization. And they're not specifically. We invite every lawyers from the entire bar and judges from all faiths to come together in that celebration and make it more of an ecumenical celebration, and then celebrate Mass together. We always renew our civil oath that lawyers are obligated to take when they become members of the bar of the state of Michigan, and it's just been a very it's a very proud tradition, but I think one with a lot of meaning, and one that's been handed down and that we hope to continue. So this is like the cornerstone of what we've done as an organization. We're trying to do other things to really help people bring their faith into what it is that they do. And I know you're going to ask lots of questions about the intersection of the law and the faith and there are some real we actually had a priest speak at an event we had a couple of years ago, and his message was, in talking about some of these cultural issues, you lawyers, you're on the cultural firing line, so it's even more important for you to be people of the faith that you profess in everything that you do. And I think he's right about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a time where it's been more, law and faith has been more at an intersection.
Right. Yeah.
And I know that we've had a local Catholic lawyer actually argue a case in front of the Supreme Court for natural marriage. I think you've just filed an amicus brief on behalf of the...
I did file an amicus brief on behalf of the Little Sisters of the Poor, and that's something that's exciting thing to do. I mean, I wish we weren't in the position of having to defend the Little Sisters from the contraceptive mandate, but that is a great honor to be able to file an amicus brief in support of the Little Sisters and the other petitioners in that Supreme Court case.
Yeah.
Just was heard last week.
Yeah, and I want to touch more on that. Let's kind of tell a little bit more about the organization so people can learn a little bit more about the organization. If there are some Catholic lawyers that hadn't heard about you,
right,
that they can know when and where and find you and all that.
Yeah, well, and I'll say we do have people who don't know about us. I think we were supposed to have an event with judges. I think in the second to last or last snowstorm, we ended up canceling. But there was a judge in Allegan County who hadn't heard of us, who's Catholic and wanted to be part of the organization. So there are people who haven't heard about us who aren't part of what we're doing, but I think would be good. We'd welcome them with open arms, and we'd love to have them.
Sure. So let's. I want to just kind of clarify again the mission a little bit. I mean, talk about kind of mutual support, that kind of thing, and just is there a particular mission or objective of the organization, whether it be support or faith building or having people you can have Bible studies with, or what kind of objectives or practical
that's a great question, and I think any one of them could speak to it well. I'll start it out, and maybe I'll pass it on to Sarah. I mean, we're actually we have a legal charter, if you will. We have bylaws and things like that, but I think, over the years, it perpetuated into, we do the Red Mass, and, what else do we do? And so your question is actually a very pointed one, and very much right where we kind of are. Over the last couple of years, we've really talked about, and especially we actually had an audience with Bishop Wackowiak at the beginning of last year about what it is that we would like to do and the things that we would like to do, and especially in this time when there are so many things to talk about, so many legal issues to discuss, and really, quite frankly, just the whole concept of living your faith in the public square. What does that mean? And so I think our mission maybe has been the field has actually been now drawn for us, and so we're looking at ways to be much more than just the Red Mass. And typically the Red Mass would also involve a speaker who would come in and speak at a dinner, and we would alternate each year between a religious and a lay person come and talk about some timely issue related to what it is we as lawyers are dealing with, and specifically in some of those issues that intersect with the faith. But there are other things that we could be doing, and I know we've had some ideas, and some of that is to reach out, to try to build that community to others that don't know that we exist, and that we actually are interested in doing just more than the Red Mass, offering opportunities to get together and discuss some of these issues. We had one of the events that we did in the fall was in conjunction with the Notre Dame Club, and we had our what is Monsignor Ed's official title?
It's a chaplain, right?
Chaplain.
Yeah.
Or, I think there's actually a different word, but Monsignor Hankevich is and he's obviously he's the judicial vicar for the diocese, and he's been connected to the Catholic lawyers for many, many years. A great supporter of everything that we do. And actually, he should be on here talking about the history because I think he's been around. But he led a discussion, a co-sponsored event with Catholic lawyers and folks from the Notre Dame Club on Eucharistic adoration. Huh? Like, things that, you're not going to find in other lawyer events, a conversation like that. And some people have never been exposed, believe it or not, to that particular form of adoring our Lord, and how powerful it can be. And so that was, I think that was well received. So things like that. And I don't know, Connor and Sarah, if you have something else you want to share about what we're trying to do.
Well, I think we want to provide a forum to offer Catholic lawyers an opportunity to have fellowship with each other. I think we're more at a crossroads and an intersection with the law and faith, and I think it's quite challenging for a lot of people, particularly young lawyers, I would imagine, although some of us more seasoned lawyers came out of law school when the law was very different on marriage, for example. So I think it's helpful, in addition to having weekly Mass, to have other opportunities to have fellowship with each other, both on a formal basis, like with the Red Mass, which we try to coincide with the start of the Supreme Court's term. And then also informally, occasionally we have what we refer to as theology on tap. And so we meet at a local watering hole, if you will, and a very informal setting. And, a lot of lawyers and other Catholics too, I think, probably find it challenging to practice regularly as in today's world when we have a lot of demands on us. So I think it might also be an opportunity for Catholics that may be not practicing regularly it's a friendly forum to come in and have fellowship with others who are practicing, and to share stories and provide support and encouragement to each other.
Okay.
And I think, Sean should take credit. We also had an event a couple years ago that he spearheaded on the Liturgy of the Hours, and Bishop Kovac spoke at that actually we prayed with him. We prayed midday prayer, and then had a lunch, and he talked about prayer. So that was a way to try to introduce people to the official prayer of the church, the office, and so that was something we've done. The other thing I think we've been trying to do more often or more frequently is be kind of an aggregator of information of different events. So, for instance, today we sent out an email that I think there is an event like every day next week, either at Hope or at Aquinas or at Sacred Heart, and just getting the word out so people know that they have these opportunities to learn more about the faith. Right. So that's one thing we do. And then like last year when we didn't do it this year during Lent, but last year during Lent we made sure we got notices out about the different communal penance services that people would have, so that they would know when and where they would have opportunities to go to confession. Mm-hmm. So I think that part of it is just being a conduit of information, but also having fun. I mean, that was the intent of the happy hour with the judges that got canceled, that we're going to reschedule, is just to have fellowship over good beer and maybe some good food, and get to know each other better. Right. And so that's, we really, we've talked about this a lot internally in the last couple years. We want to foster the new evangelization, which John Paul II talked about, and which really is re-evangelizing those people for whom the flame of faith has maybe died out. in places that historically have been Christian. And so I think that's one of the things we're trying to do. How do we reanimate some of our lawyer brethren and to understand the faith more deeply, to live it more deeply, and then also get support for ourselves, because it's not easy. It's not easy to live in this world, but I think as a lawyer, there are a lot of, especially in a positivistic legal culture where law is sort of like whatever is asserted, might makes right, to be able to go back and talk with fellow lawyers who have a different understanding, who are we really want to develop Catholic lawyers who are Catholic all the way down to the core.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
Mm-hmm. So let's, how many people are actually in the group at the moment?
Well, we don't have an official membership, but we have probably about 235 on our email list.
Really?
Yeah, that goes out. So today, I think that's what popped up when I sent the email out today. So we have quite a few on the list. In terms of who participates, it really varies.
Sure.
I mean, the Red Mass gets a lot of people. Events with Bishop Wachowiak often draw a lot of people, and he's been extremely good to us as a group. And just basically, really trying to help us foster our mission. And we've, offered to help him in whatever he needs. So we have a large list. We want to get more people involved. But it's not about numbers. I mean, like this,
sure.
this Eucharistic Adoration event was small, but we just hope even one seed was planted.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So before we go deeper, I just want to let people know if they wanted to know more about the group, and how would they either look up some information or who they could contact.
We actually have a Facebook page, so they could search Catholic Lawyers of West Michigan on Facebook. That's probably the quickest way. We don't have a website.
Okay.
Well, we sort of have a blog site.
You know what the URL is?
It's like Weebly. No, I don't know off the top of my head. So that's one of
or reach out to any of us. Our emails are, I'm sure, in the Bar Journal. And,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, one of our board members who couldn't be with us today, David Bevins, would be another contact.
Okay.
And then we actually have and I can get we have an official email address at Gmail for the group that comes to me. So
Okay.
we can get that.
We'll put that on the screen.
We'll put that on the screen.
There you go.
So it's a little cumbersome, but that's one way it'll get to me, and then we'll get it to the right person, and we'll make sure.
All right. We'll make sure to do
Yeah.
that. So I'm curious, which came first, the Catholic or the lawyer? For you as individuals, were you Catholics that became lawyers, or were you a lawyer who then you kind of took on or embraced the Catholic faith a little more deeply, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's a tie. I actually came into the church in April of 1999, and I graduated from law school in June of 1999.
Oh my.
So my last year in law school, I came into the church, which was really interesting because one of the things in my confirmation name was Thomas, after Thomas More and Thomas Aquinas. Mm-hmm. And I found the book by Thomas Aquinas, A Treatise on the Law, which is just a portion of his Summa. And here I am in my last semester of law school reading this, wondering why it is that I'm just now hearing of this.
Right.
And I think that's a real problem, and especially for lawyers who may not, be very well versed in the Catholic intellectual tradition. The foundations of law in Western civilization really go back to the very earliest philosophers in the world about what justice is and about what law is. And Aquinas is really sort of the pinnacle of summarizing that in the fact that we don't study that natural law theory in our law schools is part of the problem. Right, and Connor can add to that because he's going to say he was Catholic before he was a lawyer, and he probably had a little bit more of that. So.
Well, I took jurisprudence in law in undergrad, so I was there with a Catholic professor. I guess I'm. What is it the Harry Connick says about being Catholic? He's a practicing Catholic. He's got to practice until he gets it right.
Yeah, so that's great. Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of where I am. But I mean, I guess I really had a deepening of faith around the time I was confirmed because of a family health issue that, thanks be to God, was resolved with my mother. So that was like one moment of conversion. And then when I went to undergrad, I had a deepening of my faith. I did not have a great youth group in my parish growing up, and I was really hungering for that. And I found a Catholic student center in undergrad that just was incredible and really nourished me. And so I'm not sure I'm quite become the lawyer yet. I feel I've joked with my wife that if I ever write a memoir, which I won't, but if I did, I would title it The Reluctant Lawyer, because I feel like I sometimes am kind of dragging myself along as a lawyer. And so, yeah, I think the faith was formed, and then I saw law as a tool to live out my faith. I worked for a man I think was a saint, David Coolidge. He since passed away, but he worked on something called the Marriage Law Project, which was at Catholic University and the Ethics and Public Policy Center. This was back in the late 90s, working to foster a true understanding of marriage in the law. And he did it with such charity. He was a lawyer and also had a master's in theology. And he did it with such charity and with gentleness, but also with a real shrewdness. I saw that here's a way you can live your faith out and practice law. So that really was a pivotal moment that sort of took me from, here I am developing my faith, and I frankly I had a lot of questions. Was I called to the priesthood? Was I called to marriage? And that all got resolved, obviously, but that. It was sort of trying to wed those things together for me.
Okay, great. How about you, Sarah?
Well, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I'm also the daughter of a Catholic lawyer. So growing up, I saw the law as a very noble profession. Mm-hmm. My father is what I would call a very traditional lawyer. He graduated Notre Dame Law School in the late 50s. And the practice of law was quite different at that time. I believe the local bar association was quite a bit smaller than it is today. And he always presented it as such a noble calling and he would tell me he thought it would be a good job, but I've heard stories that, lead me to believe it was more than that. But there was a lot of collegiality, I think, among the bar, and so it. And he encouraged me. I have several siblings, so he quietly encouraged me, which in hindsight I find kind of interesting, because most people expect lawyers to be fast talking and loud and aggressive and boisterous and all those sorts of things, and that is one style of lawyering. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of reading, writing, and research that goes into it. So I think he saw some of those things in me as well. So he has one lawyer to claim from his children, but he's also now been able to claim a priest. So so we have both lawyers and religious in the family now, and awesome. I think there's a lot of parallels with the law and with our faith. Canon law is based on natural law as well. So, and I think lawyers have a certain hunger or desire to pursue truth. And I think with your faith, there's a lot of seeking the truth. And, with our faith, the truth is the word. And with the law, it might be a little bit different. But there's a lot of similarities.
Right. As a Catholic, you and as a lawyer, you probably have had different takes on concepts such as justice, right, wrong, fairness, legality, responsibility, these kind of concepts that kind of intersect both law and morality in
Right.
general. And a lot of people kind of say law and morality sometimes don't intersect at all. But I guess the question I'll ask you, because we don't have a whole lot of time, is what are the challenges, how do you meet those challenges in trying to deal with, what is right and wrong and moral versus what's legal?
Maybe I'll defer this to Connor because he's in the thick of things. He filed an amicus brief and I think is much better well read on some of them. To me, relativism comes to mind, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, I think it's first, and maybe this goes back to one of the purposes of the organization is being well formed. I mean, reading the great social teaching of the church to understand what justice is and the pursuit of the common good, and understanding that there are gaps between what we perceive as good in the law and what is actually good, and so knowing that there's a tension there, but at the same time trying to close that gap. So understanding it as an initial matter. And I think also the piece that I have really enjoyed about private practice is the service that's in law, that you serve a client, and that you get to, you have to sometimes have hard conversations with a client and that you can bring to bear your deepest beliefs on those conversations, and trying to steer a client to do what is right, and helping the client to understand the difference between what might be legally allowable and what's right. You have those opportunities, but I think it's not easy to sort of make it all work. Especially, I think, in a legal system like ours that's not based on the natural law.
I don't think Connor could overstress the idea behind being well-formed in your faith and how you could bring that to bear for the public good in your service as a lawyer. And the reverse of that is true. If you're not well-formed, you could do a lot of harm.
Right.
And
And so we're running out of time, but I'm so grateful to have you on the show.
Yeah.
And I wish you all that success in trying to bring that faith into the public.
And certainly if there are people watching who are interested, they can send us emails, find us online, and we would love to tell them more about the organization.
Yeah, and we will definitely try to get the word out for you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yep.
Sarah, Connor,
Thanks.
and you. Thank you for being with us, and we hope to join us again soon. In the meantime, we'll be praying for you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Divi